Just starting the recording. Okay, so just try to understand today's lecture is very important lecture. You try to listen it properly. Okay, I'm going to teach you about the HDFS architecture, and I'm just going to give you some brief background about MapReduce, like what is MapReduce. If possible, we'll cover whatever is possible. Okay, otherwise we are going to need one more or two more lectures for MapReduce. Okay, so the objective of today's lecture is to understand the core components of Hadoop. What are the core components of Hadoop? There are four, like some basic common libraries or files, then Yarn, HDFS, and MapReduce. Okay, so the major concentration is on about HDFS. Okay, so we have seen like what is big data. Big data is a huge amount of data. It may be in the form of petabytes or terabytes of information that we cannot handle by using our infrastructure. It is collected from variety of sources, and it is a variety of data, like it is unstructured, structured, semi-structured data. Okay, so the big data is a variety of data that is gathered from a variety of sources, and we cannot process it by using our existing infrastructure. We want to store the data and we want to analyze the data, means we want to process the data. So there are always two operations which are involved. First step is to store the data, and once the data is stored, depending on your requirement, you can do the analysis whenever required. Okay, so the storage and processing, and like why we want to analyze, because we want to reduce the cost, time, less time. We want to deliver the product with some offers, with some smart decisions, and we want to accomplish some of the tasks such as we want to find out what are the root cause of our business failure, what are the issues, what are the defects, or what are the offers that we can provide to the customer, or what are the risks that we can calculate, or what are the frauds that may occur, predict them. Like this we want to do something. Okay, this is already so what is Hadoop? So big data and Hadoop, both the terms go hand in hand. Hadoop is the first technology. Hadoop is the first technology. It is open source. Okay, the first feature of Hadoop is it is open source. It is Java based framework that allows us to perform both the steps. It allows us to store the big data, and it allows us to process this big data in a distributed environment. Okay, so it is very easy to remember the definition. Hadoop is open source. It is a Java based framework. It is owned by Apache, and it supports storage of big data, and it supports processing of big data in a distributed environment. Okay, so this is Hadoop. Hadoop is the first framework. Nowadays, other frameworks are also there, but Hadoop is the first framework by um, this Apache. Okay, this we have seen that these two scientists, Doug Cutting and Caparella, they invented this or they worked on this for the first time. The crawler part of the search engine, they were in Yahoo. The crawler part of search engine was named as Nudge, which was the meal of this duck's kid, and that duck's kid used to play with this toy Hadoop, this elephant, and this distributed and storage processing part of the project was called as Hadoop. Okay, so we are not concerned with the crawler. Crawler part is called as Nudge, but the storage and distributed processing part of the search engine. Search engine is made up of these two modules. Search engine is made up of crawler as well as storage and distributed processing of this web pages. So the storage and processing, distributed processing part of their search engine was called as Hadoop, and it is named after Doug's son's toy elephant. Okay, so this is the logo for Hadoop. Now, so this is then this Hadoop is released by Yahoo in 2008, and it is taken over by Apache. And so when this framework is introduced, these are the goals. This remembering goals and assumptions is very much required. And in the first 5 marks compulsory question, these questions are asked in many times in the exam. So the goals are like whenever this such kind of framework is invented, the goal is that it should be scalable because it is a big data. So data will go on increasing. So your system should be capable of handling more and more data. Okay, so today's big data may be a small data tomorrow. So you need to have the infrastructure in such a way that if you want to scale up machines, you should be able to do that. Okay, so that is possible. That was these were the goals that they wanted to achieve. These two scientists, when they invented Hadoop, they wanted to achieve these goals. That the system should be scalable. It should scale, and you can go on adding the machines. It should work. Then there should be a fault tolerant system because it is the case of hardware. Machines are there. Maybe one machine may work without fail for 3 years as per the statistics, but after that it may fail. And if you are having 1 millions of machines, then maybe there are 1,000 failures in a day. And so they should be handled. System should automatically detect these failures, and it should handle. It should be and all kinds of transparency should be provided to the end user. End user should not be aware, or he should not get noticed about the failure which is happening in the background. So whenever the Hadoop was designed, this was their major goal, that the system should be fault tolerant, and if there is any machine which is failed, the system should automatically handle this failure. It should detect also, and it should handle, and it should provide the transparency to the programmer as well as to the end user. Okay, so this was about the fault tolerance and handling hardware failures. The system should also be economical, because if it is costly, then no one can perform this analytics. Only big companies can perform. So it should be, the system should be economical, because it is always trial and error method. You try something in the analytics, then if it is working, then fine. Then again you try, like this. You go on trying and try till you get some value out of this data. Okay, so these are the goals. So remember, all there are four goals: scalability, fault tolerance, system should be economical, and it should handle the hardware failures. The assumptions are like if the Hadoop system, it is based on some assumptions. So the assumptions are, it is supposed to be used when your data is huge. For small data applications, you should not go for Hadoop. If your data is in petabytes, terabytes, then only you should go for this, because it is a huge infrastructure. Okay. It is assuming that the hardware may fail, plus it is assuming that the portability is there, portability across heterogeneous hardware and platforms. So because Hadoop got developed by using Java, uh, so the components of Hadoop can be created, or they can be executed on any machine or any platform. Okay, so you can have any kind of hardware computer, and your components of Hadoop can be executed on that, because it is a Java-based framework. Okay. Then the next assumption is that it allows you to have the streaming data access. Means your data is processed in terms of batches. So it is a sequential processing. In other words, it is stored in the form of a file, and it is a sequential processing. So maybe there is low latency, but there is high throughput. Okay. So low latency means for a particular module, it may give the results with lots of time, but overall for the entire project, you get the high throughput compared to other systems. Okay. So now for this batch processing, nowadays the tools are available. So in the background, even if at the low level batch processing is happening, you have some tools which will give you a feel of interactive processing. Okay, so the other ecosystem components are there which will overcome this problem. Okay, if you assume that it is a problem for you, but otherwise there is no other option, because your data is in the form of a big file. It may be an unstructured file or audio file or video file, and it is stored in the form of a file. So the sequential access is there, or batch processing is there. Okay, then it is also assuming that it is a single coherency model, simple coherency model is there. This data is written only once, and we read it for multiple times. Plus, there is one more assumption, is that instead of transferring data to the computation, it's easy to, or it is cheaper to transfer the computation to the location where the data is residing. Which I told you in the last lecture, that when you are firing any SQL query, what happens is that if your database is at the other location, after firing a query, your data is downloaded on the machine, or it is traveling, and it is residing in the machine where your program is there. So program and data are mostly residing, means data is traveling to the location where the program is residing. But here in this case, the data is huge and it's not possible to do this operation. So you have to come up with some assumption or with some technique that your code is going to travel to the location where your data is stored. Okay. And then it's this Hadoop supports tens of millions of files in a single instance. And the single instance of Hadoop cluster can support millions of files at the same time. Okay, so any doubts in this? If you're not understanding, if I'm going very fast, you can interrupt me and you can tell me. In the chat also I can see. Is it okay? Have you understood? We have till now I can summarize. We have gone through what is big data, what is Hadoop. Hadoop is a framework that will allow you to store and process data in a distributed fashion, and data can be of a variety of data. And there are some goals and assumptions of Hadoop. Okay, so any doubt? Are you listening? Any doubt in this? Please reply me on the chat.
Yes, ma'am, you're listening, no doubt.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll go ahead with the components of Hadoop. Okay. There are four main components. Hadoop common libraries is the first component. Okay. So whenever we start the Windows operating system, initially the startup operation is there, and some of the DLL files, that is dynamic linking library files of Windows, are like when your system is getting booted, and some of the files are executed. Some of the files are remaining in the memory of in the form of operating system. Similar to that, whenever the Hadoop is started, some of the common library or files are needed. Okay, so that is the first component, which is the required component, or it is called as a core component. Means the main important component without which Hadoop will not execute. So this common component is the first component, which includes the necessary Java files and scripts which are required to start the Hadoop. Okay. Plus, it may contain some of the libraries and utilities which are needed by other Hadoop components. So it is a core component, and it acts as like a kernel. Hadoop uses this common as a kernel to provide the frameworks libraries. Okay, so it acts as a kernel for Hadoop, where some necessary Java files and scripts um, are uh, are there in this component. The second component is Yarn. So Yarn is also the very important component. Yarn got introduced in the Hadoop 2.0. In Hadoop 1.0 version, Yarn was not there, and there was something called as a job tracker, which was doing the job of Yarn, but it was not giving the performance well, and some bugs were there that were removed in Hadoop 2.0, and Yarn is introduced in the version Hadoop's version 2.0. The current version is 3.0. Okay, so in the 2.0, this Yarn is a yet another resource negotiator, which is performing job scheduling and cluster resource management operation. So it is deciding that which job is to be performed by which node, and what are the resources, how much is the CPU utilization, processor utilization, memory utilization. All these things are done by Yarn. Okay, so we'll see with respect to one diagram. Then this HDFS is a distributed file system, which will allow you to store your big data in a distributed fashion in the form of a file. Then MapReduce is a software framework that provides APIs, application programming interface libraries to the programmer, and also it has some components such as a job tracker and task tracker. And a programmer can write a program. So it is a software framework that supports parallel processing. Okay, so programmer can use it. So we'll see in detail about this. MapReduce is little difficult to understand, and we may need two lectures. One lecture to understand the components of MapReduce, and one lecture with respect to a program such as word count. So we are going to see one the word count program of Java language or Python language, and we'll see how it is going to run in this particular system or with respect to the diagram. Okay, so maybe after two lectures, at the end of two lectures, I can say that you will be able to understand about MapReduce. Okay, so right now you just go through, like I'm going to use some of the terms, so you get familiarized with the terms. We will have another workflow for MapReduce, and we will revise everything. But till now, today is the introduction of some of the words about MapReduce. So I'll revise this slide. There are four components. There are four major or core components of Hadoop. The first is the Hadoop Common Library or common files. Second is Yarn, which is performing job scheduling, like operating system जैसे करते हैं वैसे job scheduling, CPU management, memory management, cluster resource का management is done by Yarn. HDFS is the file system, distributed file system. Google is using Google file system. Nowadays, Google ka file system is a GFS. There are many distributed file systems. So the examples of distributed file systems are GFS and HDFS. GFS is a Google file system and HDFS is a Hadoop distributed file system. And MapReduce is a yarn-based system that helps the programmer to write the program, plus it helps in doing the parallel processing. Okay, so there are some other components which are the part of ecosystem, such as Spark, HBase, Hive, Peak. Okay, so the common component contains jar files, Java, JRE 1.6, SSH, and libraries and utilities. Okay, this I told you last time. Then see now this diagram, I'm just showing you first this diagram to understand what are the components of HDFS. Okay, so we are now considering the component HDFS, how HDFS is working. So see in the HDFS, you can see that there is a client. Client means it is a client application. There will be a user who is interacting through this client application. So here we can have a client application which is written in terms of Java program or Python program or PySpark program, or it can be a HDFS command. It can be a simple HDFS command. So HDFS is also having multiple, जैसे disk operating system is having the commands dir or in Linux we have ls command. Like this HDFS also have a list of commands. So this client can be a simple HDFS command, or it can be a Python program, or it can be a Java program. Okay. So there is one component in HDFS that is the client application. The another component is the name node. Okay. So here in this case, it is a master slave architecture. So name node is a master of this HDFS system. HDFS purpose, the purpose of HDFS is to store the data in a distributed fashion. Okay, so the purpose of HDFS is to take a big file from client and store it in a distributed, divide it into the blocks or chunks and store it in a distributed fashion onto the cluster. Okay, so that is the purpose of HDFS, to store the data and to read the data, to help to read the data, write the data. Sometimes you need, like we assume that there's no write operations, overwrite operations are there. But in case if you need, you can do, but it is not required mostly because it is a block data, or if it is a Twitter data, then we don't want to rewrite the data. Okay, we are just storing the data, so we are performing only read operations. So the job of HDFS is to allow the client to submit his file and store this big data in a distributed fashion on multiple computers. So the first component is client application. Second component is a name node. Name node is a master of this architecture. Name node keeps the metadata information. Okay, name node keeps the metadata information about the entire cluster. Like it knows that how many data nodes are there, what is the IP address of the data node, then what are the blocks which are stored on a particular data node, like how many replicas are there. All this information or metadata information is there with name node. And there are some data nodes here in this diagram. There are two different racks. The first rack contains three data nodes. The second rack contains two data nodes for simplicity. Okay. So here this data node is a node which is going to store the actual data. Okay. So in this diagram, I just simply want to tell you that there are three major components which are shown in this diagram: client application, name node, and data node. Name node is a master, data node is a slave, and name node keeps the metadata information about the entire cluster, that how many data nodes are there, how many blocks are there for a particular file, which block is residing on which data node. Like this metadata information. Okay. Then there is some other mechanism also. There is a secondary name node also in this architecture. So name node is connected to the secondary name node or backup name node. So the backup of name node is kept onto the secondary name node. Okay, that is also there. Okay, so with this diagram, simple. There are three components. Just I want to tell you there are three components. Name node is a master, data node is a slave. Actual data is stored onto the data node, and your file is divided into blocks, and a particular block is residing on a particular data node as per the decision taken by the name node. Okay, so we'll see the workflow then. Okay, so this shows that it is a master slave architecture. This is some of the information that you can remember with respect to name node, that it is here the file system namespacing is used. So everything is in the form of a file or directory, and the operations that you can perform is like open a file, close the file, rename the file. These operations are performed with respect to name node, or the data nodes are actually storing the data. They help in creating the block, a particular block, deleting a block, or replicating a block. So the operations which are performed by data node is the block creation, deletion, replication, and it serves the request from the client. Client will ask for reading or writing operation that is done by data node. Okay, any doubt in this? So this diagram, I'm just introducing you with the components of HDFS, that is client, name node, data node. Name node keeps the metadata information about the cluster, and with respect to the entire big file, it helps or it coordinates the operations of opening, renaming, closing the file. Plus, it maps all the blocks with the data nodes, like which block is stored on which data node. And the data node, on this data node, actual block is stored. So data node perform the operation of block creation, deletion, replication. It can handle the request from the client, and the request can be read request or write request for a particular block. Okay. So this way, this the just an introduction. Okay. Now we will see this afterwards. Okay. So I have drawn the another diagram again. Now we'll see like how the file is getting stored. What are the operations that will occur in this particular cluster? Okay. So with respect to the some animation. So here the client application is there. This is a file. This ABC. These are the blocks actually, but this entire big rectangle is a file. Suppose, and the name of the file is feedback.txt. Okay, suppose I want to find out that how many times the word refund has occurred in this feedback.txt file. Okay, so this is some feedback, and all the like a particular vendor's feedback, and how many times the returns or refund is done with respect to this particular vendor. So I want to try to count the word refund. What is the frequency of the word refund? Or I want to find out the frequency of each and every word, that unique word. So this is something like a big file. This ABC combined together, this big rectangle is a file, feedback.txt. And this file is to be stored onto this is a big data. This file is to be stored onto this cluster. Okay. So this client has not created these blocks. Okay. Client has this entire file. Client submits this file to the cluster inside with DFS, distributed file system. So it performs the it gives the command HDFS command, and it tells that I want to store this file. Okay, so client submits this request in the form of a command to the cluster. That request goes to the name node. Okay, that I want to store the file. Now name node has all this metadata information. So name node in consultation with Yarn, we'll try to find out that how many machines are there, how many data nodes are there, what is the space available on a particular data node. Then it will divide this entire file into the blocks. A size of a block is typically by default 64 MB. So suppose it decides that the file should be divided into 3 blocks. So it takes the decision about that. And then by referring its metadata in consultation with Yarn, it comes to the conclusion that there are this file should be divided into 3 blocks, and it gives some name to the block like block number A, B, or C. And even it decides that A should be stored on data node 1. Suppose this is here data node 1, 2, 3. I have numbered them. So this machine is a data node DN1. This machine is DN2, DN3, like this. So it takes a decision that the 3 replicas should be stored, because for the cluster administrator, uh, can do some settings in a particular file of this cluster hdfs site.xml file, and in that file there is a like a term, or there is uh, some dfs.replication parameter is there. So you can set this parameter. By default, the parameter is equal to 3. So if it is 3, then 3 replicas are stored. If you want to store 5, then the administrator will make the changes in this XML file. This is a configuration file for the cluster. So there is a configuration file hdfs site.xml where the parameter is 3. So it takes a decision that it has to create 3 replicas of the black block A. And it takes a decision that it should be stored on DN1, 2, and 5. Okay, I've already stored B and C here in the diagram. I've not created the animation. I'm just telling you about only one block. Same thing will be repeated for every block. So just we'll repeat it again. Client has a big file. Client submits the file to the cluster, and he gives the request that I want to store the file. Now name node will come to the conclusion that there are 3 blocks are there, and every block is to be stored on a particular data node. It takes a decision in consultation with Yarn and its metadata. Okay. Now this information is submitted, is given back to the client. Now Nemnode is not doing anything. It has told client that this way the file is to be stored. Now it is the job of client application. Client application establishes the TCP connection, because it will provide this IP address, port number, everything. It will be rack number. All this information is provided by Nemnode to the client, and client will establish the TCP connection with the first primary data node. Okay, so here DN1 is a primary or main information on, means that whenever A is to be referred, block A is to be referred, DN1 is contacted first because it is primary data node. And these are replicas. 2 and 5 are replica. Here 3 and 4 is replica. 3 and 5 is a replica of 2. So major blocks are 1 and 2. So for client will communicate to DN1, and it will send this block. It will send this block A to this machine DN1, and it will tell that okay, you store this block A on your machine, and the replicas are to be stored on 2 and 5. Okay. Why this is done? Because otherwise there will be lots of traffic. Client is communicating with everyone in the node. So to scatter the traffic of signals, this scheme is used. Client will talk to only one machine, and it will inform about the replicas. So now DN1, the block will get stored here in DN1 with the replica names. So A, now it has understood that the another replica is to be stored on DN2. So this data node 1 will, in the background, will get connected to data node 2 with the TCP connection, and it will send the information that you store this block A on yourself, and you keep a replica on machine number DN5, which is there in the another rack. So it will establish the TCP connection with that DN5 machine, and it will transfer this block, and DN5 will store it. And if it is stored properly, it will send the acknowledgement, positive acknowledgement to data node 2. Now the data node 2, if both the copies are properly stored, it will send the positive acknowledgement to data node 1, and data node 1 will reply to the client application with positive acknowledgement, and the client application will inform the name node that it is successfully stored. Block A is successfully stored. So the same procedure will be repeated for B and C also. Okay. Now once the success signal is received, name node will finalize that okay, this block got stored on these 3 machines 1, 2, and 5, and it will update its metadata information. Okay, so this is the storage part, like how this information is stored. The client submits this request to name node. Name node will inform the client about the data nodes, and client will get connected to the data node, and the replicas are created. Okay, so I think this is okay. And now here, whenever this replica, the number of replicas are to be considered as 3, the system will decide this name nodes. This name node will decide about the data node in such a way that 2 replicas are stored in nearby machines. So like here, they are in the same rack. DN1 and DN2 are in the same rack, and if they are located nearby, then they are stored. Two copies are stored nearby locations, and the third copy is stored into the machine which is there in the another rack. Okay, so why this is done? Because suppose this machine is failed, data node 1 is failed, then this block A will become inaccessible. So in that case, the name node will come to know after some time. We'll see that how name node will come to know about it, that this data node 1 is inaccessible, or it is not working, or it is switched off. Then the load or the computation is, or whatever the job this data node was doing, everything uh, will be given to some other machine. So for block A, the nearby machine will be allocated, and DN2 will become the primary machine for the block A. Okay, so that's why there should be a nearby machine, so that the time for accessing should be less. Time for accessing this data should be less. Okay, we are just talking about storage of data. We are not talking about the computation right now. But the computation is going to be relocated. So this computation should also be relocated to the other machine. That's why the machine is selected in such a way that second replica, that it is near to this primary machine. Okay, so if this machine is failed, then this machine will take over the job. Plus, if the switch is failed, this particular switch which is connecting two different racks, if this switch is failed, then this entire rack is inaccessible. So if this entire rack is inaccessible, then block A will be referred from this DN5 in that case. So that's why one replica is stored in some other machine where it is in a different rack. This way they are doing the replication. Okay, so this process shows that there is lots of signals are transferred in between these machines, and a client is not communicating with DN1, DN2, and DN5. Otherwise, there will be lots of traffic in the particular. So they just want to scatter the traffic, and different types of signals are in between different machines. So overall, entire cluster, multiple signals are transferred. And normally, a Hadoop's target is the cluster of 10,000 nodes. Okay. So any doubt in this? This way the file will get stored. So all these three blocks will get stored in the cluster, and then you can do the analysis immediately, or maybe in future. Sometimes whenever you want, you will do the analysis. So for that analysis, the client is going to write the program. Okay, this is showing you how the failure is handled. Now what happens is that here these machines, all these data nodes, they are slave computers, and this is your master. So these slave machines, in every they send the heartbeats. They send their heartbeats, or maybe you can call it as a hello packet, in some time interval to name node. Okay, all the data node, they are sending their heartbeats to their master. So all the slaves are sending heartbeats to the master in some time interval. And if the master is not receiving any heartbeat from a slave, then it understands that there is something problem in the slave, and then it may decide, and it will again recheck, and it may take a decision about what is to be done. Okay. Similar to that, if the name node is failed, then name node is also sending the backup to the secondary name node uh, in every 1 hour of time. So if the secondary name node is not receiving any heartbeat from name node in 1 hour of time, or some time lapse, then it will try to check whether the name node is alive, and otherwise if it is not alive, then it will create, because the backup is there in the secondary name node, it will again create the new process. So I'm just giving this is actually a computer, and name node and data node, that's what we are calling it as a computer. But these are the commodity hardware. This is a commodity hardware. Commodity hardware is a simple machine, a normal configuration wala machine with the Linux operating system. Okay, so here this whenever I'm referring this name node and data node, when Hadoop cluster is started, these are actually nothing but these are the processes. Okay, so the name node is a process, data node is a process, and when the Hadoop cluster is started, that time these processes, let's just say operating system processes are started in the machine. Like this, these processes are running on this machine, and we call them as a name node or data. Okay, so remember these are the processes. So if this name node is not alive, then secondary name node will may do something like it may go with the select the another machine and will restart this process. Okay, so this way the failure is handled. So again, we can revise about failure, that if the data is replicated at multiple locations, so the data will be available for 24 by 7, because if the machine is not accessible, data is there onto the other machine. So replicas are there to because of the replicas, data is available. And if the system will identify if the data node is failed, because the data node is going to send the heartbeat to the master node, and master node is also sending heartbeat to the backup or secondary name node. Okay, so here this data nodes, they send the heartbeat in every 3 seconds, and just they are just saying that I'm alive, I'm alive. Okay, every 3 seconds they are just informing the name node that I'm alive. And the 10th block, so first 9 block is just a heartbeat, and the 10th heartbeat or 10th signal is the information about the blocks. Okay, I'm having this many blocks, and this like everything which is there inside this machine. So all detailed information will be sent at every 10th signal. Okay, so 9 signal is just a heartbeat, 10 signal is about the information which is available onto the data. Okay. And this is gathered by the name node to just update its metadata information. Similar to that, this name node is the secondary name node pay. Name node ka backup is taken at every 1 hour. So if the name node is dead, then maybe in that 1 hour ka jo bhi work hai, that may get lost, or that will have to be recomputed, or it should be redone by the secondary name node. Okay, so it will have to redo the things. Okay, this way the failure is handled. Now we this any doubt in this storage part?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so we'll see that how this computation is performed now. Because the client is going to write the program. Okay, now the MapReduce part is there, and client is going to write the program. So client will write the program in the form of a Java file or Python file. Okay, client is going to write the program in the form of a Java file or Python file, and he has to write a mapper function and reducer function and a main program. And so he is writing a program that is called as a job. Okay. Are you understanding, or is it becoming too complex? Please you reply me. So, okay, so there are so many replies in the chat. We have till now we have seen the storage part of HDFS. Now we are going to see about the processing. Okay, so to processing means you have to process this data, all these blocks. We want to find out that how many, what is the word frequency in block A, what is the word frequency of a particular word in block B, what is the word frequency in block C. Like this, we want to do something with this with respect to this file. So client is going to write a big file, and client is going to write the main program. And client is going to write a map program, mapper, and a reducer, and that is the job. Okay, so the job contain multiple tasks. Okay, the job is divided into multiple tasks: a mapper task and the reducer task. Okay, so the client will write it and it will submit it to the system. It will submit it to the name node or your job tracker. Okay, now job tracker is also a master. Now this is something related to MapReduce. What I'm talking is related to MapReduce. So the MapReduce has also a master slave architecture, and the master of MapReduce is a job tracker. And it is not compulsory that name node and job tracker, these are the processes, and they are running on the same machine. It is not compulsory. But most of the cases for simple kind of architecture where we run our program or when we are learning about Hadoop, we will be having both the processes on the same machine. Okay. Okay. Just try to understand. I'm talking about MapReduce now slowly. This HDFS part is done. Storage of the file is done. Now I want to do the word count exercise. So I'm going to write a program, and the program has two different tasks. Every time, every program is written with respect to the task, and there are two tasks are required: mapping task and reducing task. So your logic of writing a program is in the form of a mapper and reducer and a main program. Okay, so that entire thing is called as a job. That job is submitted to job tracker. Job tracker is a component of map reduce. So job tracker means the entire job. Now job tracker will look into the job and it will understand that there is a map task, there is a reducer task. Okay, so job tracker, and it is not compulsory that job tracker and name node should be there on the same machine. For simplicity, I have shown it on the in the same machine. It can be there on the same machine also, but it is not compulsory. Okay, so in the real world, with a big cluster, you will have one machine with name node and one machine with the job tracker. So client will submit the job to the job tracker, means his program to the job tracker. Job tracker will look into the job. It will also identify that this job is to be performed with respect to this feedback.txt file, which has 3 blocks. Now it will have communication with name node. So in consultation with name node, it will come to know that these different blocks are there on different data nodes. So it will come to know that A is for A it has to refer to DN1. For B it has to refer DN1. For C it has to refer DN2. Okay, so C is so it understands that this data node 1 and data node 2 are the main computers to which it has to contact to perform the job. Okay, so this way job tracker in consultation with name node will gather all the information and it will instruct the task tracker. So corresponding to the job tracker, there is something called as task tracker which is residing on every data node. When the data node is started, this job tracker is task tracker is also started. Data node 1 process is started on this machine and task tracker process is also started. So job tracker will instruct the task tracker and it will send the task to the task tracker. Now it is sending this particular task tracker that this is a map function and you perform, this is a computation or this is a program. You run this program on this data node A. Plus it will tell that okay, the same code you run with the data node other block B. Like this it will inform. Okay, so it is not B can be there on data node 3. If it is data node 3 is a primary for block B, then the map will come here and that map will operate on this B. Okay, but in my example I've taken DN1 as a primary, so it will tell this machine that this mapper to work on A and to work on B and to generate the intermediate results. Okay, so this map then again it will transfer the map because C is in DN2, it will send the same map function. Okay, you are writing a single piece of code. Maybe your code is only 4 lines or 5 lines of code, and that code is here. The same copy of code is here. Now this map is going to work with this C block. Okay. Now both of them they will work. Okay. So if I'm assuming that B is this machine is a primary machine, so this map will work on this B block, and then it will decide that this machine is free. Okay, it is not performing anything, it is idle machine. So job tracker will decide that reducer should be executed here. So this job tracker will instruct this task tracker to execute the reduce job here. Okay, so the reducer computation is traveling and reaching over here and it will be executed here. But now what is the input to this? For this mappers, the input is, for this map, the input is A. For this map, if the input is C. For this map, input is A. The output of this map function is always an intermediate code, which I am showing here as this block. This I is called as an intermediate output because there is no space. I am just writing here capital I to indicate intermediate output. And this intermediate output is in the form of key and value pair. Okay, your file is a big file, but after performing map operation on the block A, the output that is generated is in the form of a file, and that file is an intermediate output, and the contents of this file is in the form of key and value pair. Okay, so this map will store I here, then this map will store I here, this map will store I here. So all this, they will be executed in parallel, and then intermediate outputs in the form of key and value pair. So it is just a key and value pair. So Python mein we just create the list, the key and value, key value. So it's very easy to compare and do something with that. So that key values are generated and that is stored over here. Now this Hadoop system is performing one more task. The programmer is writing mapper and programmer is writing reducer, but there is one particular task called as a shuffling. So the shuffling task is done by this Hadoop cluster. It will shuffle all this input. It will do something with this. It will shuffle and it will transfer all these keys and values to this particular place on this data node 4. And this reducer will get input from all these three intermediate outputs. So all this I output is reaching over here. So you may have one reducer or multiple reducers. Okay. So some of the input will go to this reducer 1, some of the input will go to some reducer 2. So I'll just again update the diagram for the next lecture with the multiple reducers. Okay, for simplicity, I've kept only one reducer. So all these outputs, the size of the output might be reduced, and this output is reaching as input to this reducer. This reducer will perform this reducer operation and will generate the the final output. And the final output is a word count that is stored in the form of a file. Means the results are stored in the form of a file on this data node 4. So in future, whenever the results are to be referred, this system will forward and it will inform the client application to refer this file output.txt file on data node 4, and then it will perform the read operation on this output file. Okay, so this way it is happening in this architecture. Okay. So, we'll summarize this. There are two steps: storage and parallel processing. Here in this yellow color, I'm just telling that this HDFS is performing two operations: storage, and the cluster parallel processing is also done. For storage, the client will submit the file. Name node will identify the data nodes where the blocks are stored. Client will get connected using TCP IP protocol, and it will send the block, and the replicas are created, and then in some time the data will get stored. After that, client will submit the job to the job tracker, which is the component of MapReduce. Then the job tracker will go through this jobs, and it will identify the task. It will identify the mapper task and a reducer task. Then it will go through the file ka blocks. In consultation with name node, it will identify that A is there on this machine, C is there on this particular machine, and then it will by referring this information, it will relocate the computation at the location where the data is stored. So we are saying that the computation means this is a code. This code is relocated to the location where the data is residing, and then it is a job of task tracker to execute the task. After execution of the task, it will create the intermediate output that is temporarily stored on these nodes. Then once the output is available by all the nodes done in parallel, that output is shuffled, and it is reaching to some other machines where the reducers are there, and there can be one reducer or more than one reducers. So this intermediate input will go as input to multiple reducers. Reducer will perform the reducer ka job, and it will create the final output. Or if there are multiple reducers, they will combine. Their output is combined together. Or there is output is if output is also big, because it is a case of big data. So output, if it is not possible to store it on one machine, then output is in the form of chunks available on multiple. It is also distributed. Output is also distributed. Okay, so this way we can say that these are the features now. Now this is the theoretical part. Whenever you are writing, so I think we can go through this. When I just wanted to show you. So this is actually a theory. Like what is whenever you are writing answer for HDFS, These are the points that you have to write that I have created in the form of a PowerPoint.
Ma'am, your PPT is gone.
Yeah, yeah. So we can summarize for what is HDFS. HDFS is a distributed file design. Okay, you can store the file in a distributed fashion on the cluster on multiple computers. Then the another point that you can remember is that it provides you command line interface. Like this is client and the cluster, and between that it is like a command line interface. Like you get a dollar prompt in Linux, or you have that C prompt in DOS. Like that, you get a HDFS ka prompt. Even whenever you are executing Python commands, you get the command line interface Python ka and prompt. Like this, you have a prompt, and in front of the prompt, you can give the command. You can to execute your program or to execute a HDFS command to store the file or to read the file or write the file. So the second point that we can remember about HDFS is that it provides a command line interface. And through this command line interface, client can submit the job to the cluster. Okay. So the first point was it is a distributed file design. Second point is that it provides a command line interface. Third point is that it runs on a commodity hardware. Okay, that means these are very cheap computers. Only the CPU and processor, memory, and hard disk is there. Nothing else, and a cheap computer, and it can run on that. So with the help of all this such kind of systems, the cluster is created. Then we can also remember about HDFS that it is highly fault tolerant. Fault tolerant means your machines, if they are failed, automatically detected by the system, and the system takes care. It can restart the machine, or it can restart the work on some other machine. It can restart the task on the other machine. So it is highly fault tolerant system. If the name node is there, secondary name node is there, where the backup is stored, when the information about the cluster is maintained, and the backup is created on the secondary machine. So like this, the fault tolerance is there. Then the third point that you can remember is that it is a distributed file storage and redundant storage. The file blocks are stored in a redundant way, like three copies are maintained, so that data is available always. Then the system is scalable. You can go on adding this racks and go on adding the data nodes. The system will perform. Then it makes the applications available for parallel processing, because your data is stored in a distributed fashion. It is now available to perform or to do the parallel processing, because parallelly everyone can execute the same program on the chunk of data. Then you can remember that here the data is not stored in an encrypted fashion, so it is not that secure, but some security is there. Like if the client is an authenticated client, and if he is authorized to access a particular file, then only he is allowed to do the operation. So authentication and authorization is there, file permissions and all is done in between client and name node. So first step is to authenticate the client. Then high scalability and throughput. Okay, so system is highly scalable, and overall execution of the program is very time taken for overall execution of the project is less. Then another, so these are the things that you have to write. Okay, then it has name node and data node. So streaming access to the file. Okay, so I think we will stop here now. We will see in detail. Like this is also theory which you have to write in the exam. So we'll see this. Plus, I'll update this. I'll update the animation part, and with respect to MapReduce, in the next lecture we will see, or we will revisit with MapReduce. So if you are having some doubts about task tracker or job tracker, that we will go and handle it in the next lecture. Okay, right now, today I concentrated on HDFS. HDFS, how the data is stored. Okay, so we can stop now. Any doubts in this? Okay, so see you on Thursday. Thursday I have got the lecture.